Hello and welcome to the Fedora Files. I am Gregory Fedora. With me today is once again my good friend Chip Stetson. Welcome, Chip.
How
And
you doing, Greg?
good. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, this
How
is
you
our.
doing?
I'm
You
great.
got like a lot of family stuff planned?
Yeah, well, you see, I got my little Christmas bear right there, so that's my decoration. So this is
Nice.
our great Christmas episode, I guess. You and I, since we delve into the darker side of things like the monsters and ghosts, like we want to talk about the ghosts and monsters around the Christmas holiday. Like there's so many things out there about, it's a wonderful life, joy to the world and stuff. But we want to tell you the ghost stories and the monsters that seem to be there. And I have a few favorites, and I know you have a couple. I think I'll let you go first because I'll get going here in a minute. But like, what are some
Well,
of your favorite ghost stories?
you are more the monster side. I'm more of the paranormal side. And believe it or not, Christmas time used to be a time where they did tell ghost stories. The most famous being A Christmas Carol.
Mhm.
And that's not the most. I mean, that's not the oldest one. This used to take place all the way back to Victorian times, and sometime during history we got away from that, but there are a lot of interesting ghost stories, not only old ones but more recent ones. And the
Mhm.
reason why this is usually brought up around this time of year is because people lose family members, lose friends, and it's a very emotional time because families are getting together, friends are getting together, and there's a lot of emotional energy.
Mhm.
I was looking at some stories that have been reported. One from Bloomington, Indiana. They were talking about how uh, they moved there and it was their dream house. It was after their mother died, or his mother died. And they bought the house because they liked the hearth, and they always had a fire going in the hearth. During Christmas, they put up a tree and they strung these flashing lights, but there was one particular strand that just refused to flash, and they couldn't figure out how to fix it. Then on Christmas Eve, the fire goes down, all the lights on the tree go out except for that one strand, and it starts flashing and blinking. And he had this weird feeling that somebody was watching him. So he turns around, looks at his lazy boy, and his mother's sitting there.
Mhm.
And she doesn't say anything. She's just smiling at him. And his wife sees him too. And then a few minutes later, she disappears. The fire comes back on in the hearth. The lights in the Christmas tree come back on, except for that one strand. And they said it's never worked ever since. I mean, it's just
Hmm.
emotional things like that. But
Yeah,
at the
that's
same time, you've got stories about people that see, Santa Claus. We think
Mhm.
that he's a myth, but there
Mhm.
are people out there that claim that they have seen him. There was this one girl in Texas when she was 8 years old. She heard something in the middle of the night. She woke up. She opens up her door, looks outside. She sees this guy hunched over, and he's removing the Christmas stockings off of the hearth. And he turns around. She says, "It's Santa Claus." But the weird thing was, she could see through him. She could see all the lights on the Christmas tree. And he's taking the stockings down off the hearth and laying them on the coffee table. I'm not sure why. She doesn't really go into that. So she runs back to her room, jumps under the covers, covers her head. Next morning, she tells her sister what she saw. When they walk out into the living room, the stockings are exactly where she said that she saw Santa Claus lay them. It's
Hmm.
just little things like that. I mean, you have the supernatural, then you also have the emotional. And
Mhm.
the emotional, there's more stories than there are Santa Claus, of course. Like there was one on an Indian reservation in North Dakota. Um, a young lady was coming home from working at the casino, and when she walked up to her front door, she looks in the window and she sees her brother, her uncle, and there's two other people standing there. One person standing behind her brother, and it looked like a lady, and then there was another figure that was standing in the corner. So she walks in thinking that they're having a Christmas party and guests, and she just sees her brother and her uncle. And she's like, "Where's everybody else at?" And they're like, "We're the only two here." And she's like, "Well, I saw somebody standing behind you." And the uncle said that he thought he saw a figure standing behind him, brushing his hair because her brother had really long hair. And they figured out, or they think that it was his mother because she used to like to comb his hair when he was a little kid. And they think that it was just, her way of showing them that she was still around, she still cared, she still loved them. But they couldn't figure out who was in the corner that was standing there, and they assumed that it might have been their great grandmother, their mother's grandmother, looking over her as well.
Hmm.
So, like I said, it's an emotional time of year. There's a lot of energy, a lot of love, a lot of sadness, and it all comes back, and it can,
Yeah.
bring about some interesting situations.
Yeah, it seems to be like you said, it's emotionally like there's happiness, there's happy memories, there's sadness because you are thinking about loved ones who aren't there. So
Right.
like just a crazy mix of both. And I know I've read some stories that obviously Christmas Carol is like the most famous ghost story now because of but yeah, you said there are many stories. I've heard many different stories around Christmas and the Christmas ghosts, the Christmas spirits, and it's it is an interesting time. Like I'm not really as into the paranormal ghost side of things, but I have read a few. They are all very and like I said, they are emotionally. I've even got emotional about the little strand as you were telling it. That just thinking about that, the mother sitting there smiling, and so that
And
probably.
it's stories that you want to hear. I mean, because
Mhm,
when you lose somebody, you want to believe that they're still there, that they're
mhm.
looking after you, and that they still want to be a part of your life. So, I mean, I can understand a lot of these. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's nice. Like now mine it's more the monsters,
mm,
and I have a few that I love. I love the story that they are the most famous Christmas monster. I think everybody knows is Krampus, and
yes,
and they even did a movie about him. They've done actually. There's been a couple movies, and there's
it was
actually
a documentary, right?
yeah, well, yeah, yes, it was. It was a great documentary. Um, actually, that movie is great. I loved it. It was
Yeah,
hilarious.
it
I
really
mean,
was
it
good.
was had some scary parts, but it was actually really funny and it was well done. It was very. If you have not seen Krampus the movie, I would go see it. It's a great Christmas. I mean, next to Die Hard, it's my second favorite Christmas film. But
I don't
there.
know. Gremlins is still right up there.
It's not there, but like I probably just started a plethora of arguments now. Is Die Hard really a Christmas movie? But it
Yes,
is.
I'll end it right there.
Yeah.
It's a
There's
Christmas
even
movie.
a book, a Christmas Die Hard book. But anyway, well, Krampus like seems to be one of the most famous. But the interesting thing about Krampus is his day isn't even on this December 25th. It's actually December 5th. That's the big Krampus day. That it's the day before St. Nicholas Day. And in Europe, there's all kinds of Krampus festivals. And his description is like all over the place because people dressed up as Krampus, and so, depending on where you were in that world, that would determine what he looked like. Some had said he had ram horns, or some goat horns, some cow horns, but it was really depending on what livestock you had, and then that would be determining your Krampus activities and who he was. But I found it interesting as I was studying more of the monsters. It seemed that most of them were like Scandinavian and German and Germanic background. And it seemed like that part of the world really hates their children. And because they like some of these date back before Christendom, I guess that's what you would call it, like before the missionaries came, and because it all focused around Yule, and Yule was pretty much like you said, it's an emotional time. Ghost stories came from it because it was kind of the time when the world in that part of the world was dead. It was so they had a lot of fear, the Yule log, all that, and uh, but Krampus was obviously he's the start of the monsters in that time period because he's December 5th. He comes and he grabs you if you're a naughty child, stuffs you in his bag, and takes you to the underworld. And so, I mean, it wasn't even like you're a bad kid, stop it, you're getting a spanking. No, you're going to hell. And that's that was Krampus. That's what he did. And that's what parents told their kids. Maybe we need to do more of that. Like the kids are out of control. Maybe we need more
Just damn
Krampus.
straight.
Yeah. Now, another cool, well, not maybe not cool, but I enjoyed it was I'm not going to try to pronounce it. It's an Icelandic because Icelandic words are like 1,000 consonants and like one vowel, and
Yeah.
it's like try. I would just completely butcher it, but the English translation, which is beautiful, is Yule Cat. That is what and the it's like I'll try it. It's hilarious.
Is it an actual cat?
Yeah, yes, it is. It's
Wow.
Jolakuturinen. Jolakuturinen is the Icelandic way, but it translates to Yule cat. Now, you didn't want to meet this cat. This cat was only came to the naughty children. And if you were a bad child in the time of Yule, the Yule cat came and it ate you. And
It
and that was
ate
it.
you?
It just ate you. It ate you and you were
Was
dead.
it like a tiger or was it just like a
No,
little
well, it's Well, see, here's the thing, like poor black cats, they always get the, the bad rub of it. It's like it was a
Yeah.
black cat and it was a large black cat. But obviously in Iceland, they didn't have tigers and panthers. So, but you would, probably a lot of black cats were killed because they were, oh, it's the Yule cat. Watch out, Yule cat. Um, Another German, thank you to Germany. They bring us a lot of things. So we go from Iceland. We're going to come back to Iceland because they have a whole plethora of other mischievous, naughty things that happen around December. Now, the rest of these all take place on Yule, which is around December 25th, as we know Christmas. Um, Now, this one was, I'm going to try and pronounce it. It's German, but it's Frau Perchka. So Frau Perchka is her name, or Perchta, Frau Perchta. Yeah, I believe
That's
is
a
how you
lady.
say it. Yeah, it's hard to say. It's like Frau Bueller on, you know, Young Frankenstein. But
Oh, I thought you were going to say day off.
no, no. What she was a witch.
Oh,
This
okay.
one, and she would go around on the 12 days of Christmas, and basically, if you were bad, you would proceed to get horrible gifts. And then on the 12th day of Christmas, if you hadn't changed your ways, she again took you to hell. And so you had 12 days to make amends.
Did they
So,
say what kind of bad gifts they were?
oh, well, like this is where you get the idea of coal and such
Okay.
and such. Now, like it began on December 25th. That's the first day it would start. So if you woke up as a child, oh, it's Christmas Day, and you went down, oh, there's a piece of coal. Parents would be like, oh, Frau Pruchket came for you today, young one. Oh no. Then the next day you get something more about like that. Oh, I better clean my room. Like so it was kind of used as like, watch out because if you haven't changed by January 6th, you were going to hell and there was nothing you could do about it. If you
They are
got
fascinated with hell.
Yeah, yeah. If you got past Krampus and the Yule Cat, here comes Frau Perchka, and she's gonna get you. I'm guessing there weren't very many bad children in Germany, but we know there were because there was a couple of wars they started. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure how well this worked. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, now here's another one from Germany with
Oh,
love.
no.
Yeah, crazy. This one was Belschnickel, and and obviously, if you were named Belschnickel, yeah, obviously you have a grudge because
Oh,
that's a
yeah. You're
horrible name. Yeah. Now he was from Germany and he came to the United States and he hangs out in the Pennsylvania Dutch area. So not far from Maryland and Virginia. He came down in the Pennsylvania area, but he was like kind of an anti-Santa. He would come and again, he wasn't as bad. He would come and again leave coal or witches because they kind of differentiated, Santa Claus and Father Christmas with these others. Like a lot of times people still say, well, Santa's going to bring you coal if you're naughty. Well, they
right.
didn't. The Germans were like, no, Santa never gives bad gifts. He's only good things or nothing. But if you get a bad gift, it's, from Frau Pruchka or Belschnickel, you know, that's what they did, and again, now he wasn't as bad. He did not drag you to hell, but I think that's because he left Germany and came to America and he's like, hey, you know what? I have more freedom. I don't have to take children to hell. You know, that's my only guess on why he did not. Like perhaps the Pennsylvania Dutch were like, we don't want our children to think they're going to hell at this point. We're away from that. America, we don't go to hell here.
Yeah. We
That's
just sent back to Europe. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So then from there, now here's a couple of France also had a couple. They had one gentleman named Hans Trapp who he was supposedly a real person. I tried to find any information on if this man actually existed, but according to folklore, he was a wealthy individual in France, very greedy. He's kind of like a Scrooge, like
Okay.
Ebenezer Scrooge, and a very similar story, except that he did not become all happy giddy and like change his ways. He died in greed, and so then he was cursed. He couldn't get to heaven, and he's in the afterlife in his version of I guess a purgatory, And in this, he's going and he kind of warns people more. He's like, he's kind of like the ghost, like Marley, going,
Or
hey, this is a horrible, this is where you're headed. You're headed to all these chains like me. And he's more of a spectral. If you meet him, so he's kind of a ghost, but I don't, it's interesting. But he's one of these where they're like, if you run into him, this is a chance to change before, Frau Pruchak and all those people in Krampus come. This guy's going to say, hey, don't be like me. Another French one was a guy named Pierre Fouettard, I think is how it's Fouettard. Fouettard. But he was again another gentleman who, again, he left switches. He was kind of in France, a compatriot or a buddy of Saint Nicholas. So they would celebrate Saint Nicholas on December 6th. This Pierre guy would go along with Saint Nicholas, and Saint Nicholas would leave good gifts. He would leave the bad gifts. Again, they differentiated, saying Saint Nicholas, Santa Claus leaves good stuff. His buddy Pierre, he only has garbage. Um, Now we're going back to Iceland for my favorite last two groups, uh, because these ones worked in tandem. Um, Again, I'm not going to try and pronounce the Icelandic name for the first one here, but basically it translates to Yule lads. It's kind of similar to the Yule cat, so it's Jol blah blah blah. It begins with a J, but it's the Yule lads, and they were 13 trolls. So Iceland, they love elves, and then they have these trolls. Now the trolls, they were more mischievous, and it wasn't necessarily that they weren't. They would do stuff to even good people. They would like mess with your house, your home. Is this got into why you would light a Christmas tree in that area, because you would have this, and it would kind of keep them from coming in your home. That's also why
okay,
you would burn the Yule log so that they couldn't come through the chimney, because they would be that's kind of why they would do this Yule log thing. It was to keep the bad out, the evil out. And these guys were mischievous trolls who would come in, and if you kept light on in your home with the Yule log, the candles, and stuff, they couldn't get in, and they would cause issue. Now they worked for their mother, and the mother here, she's a treat. Uh, she's probably the worst Christmas story. Again, why do the people of Iceland and the Norwegians and Germans hate children? I don't know, but I am convinced they do. At least the old ones. Maybe nowadays not so much, but back in the day, they seem to despise their children by telling them these stories. I mean, this would be like, you know, Child Protective Services should come and take all the children from Germany and Iceland and Norwegian areas and Scandinavia and get them out of there, because they are, at least back then. I'm not saying that they're that way now. I just want to clarify. But her name was Gryella. Gryella, I believe it's Gryla, and there's a little fun little thing over the Y, so it's Grula. I don't. But again, it's an Icelandic word, so I'm probably butchering it. But she was the mother of the Yule lad, so she had 13 kids, 13 troll children. So obviously, she's an angry woman. I mean, having to give birth to 13 trolls, that would do it to you. But now what she did, and this is what I love. She's again one of these, if you're a naughty child and you're out alone in the woods in the time of Yule or Christmas, she would find you, and then she would attack you and eviscerate you, pull out all your organs and put garbage in its place, and then sew you back up and send you home. And somehow you would still be alive. You would just have garbage in you. And
sounds like one of my
uh,
ex-girlfriends.
yeah, exactly. Yes, you may have. I believe I met her. You dated her once,
Yeah.
and I think I remember. I walked into a karaoke bar and she threw something at you. But
Yeah.
yeah, luckily she did not eviscerate you and stuff garbage in you.
No.
So to me, it's fascinating, the stories from around the world, and there's many others that I could have gone into. There are some from like Japan and stuff, but these were kind of my favorites because I thought it was an interesting trend that Germany and the Scandinavian and Iceland countries seem to have this common thread of children being dragged to hell by monsters around Christmas time. And it was like, do what we tell you, or these monsters come and kill you. And like Krampus, I released the Monster Monday video on Krampus. That's why I didn't want to get too much into him, because I did a whole Monster Monday video on him. And you can go see that at fedoracrt.com, as well as, Chip's Ghosts and Goblins, which are
Oh
on
yeah.
fedoracrt.com. And there's so much over there. You can go check out everything. We have so many things on there. Besides the podcast, there's videos and a blog and all kinds of fun things that you should go check out if you haven't. But yes, so Merry Christmas. I hope this Monster and Ghost Fest has like really brought some joy to you.
Oh, this is my favorite time of year because
Oh yeah.
Santa and we've got a lot in common. I'm fat and jolly, and I like milk and cookies.
I'm not like Santa at all. Like, except for
No,
I do like milk and cookies, and I am jolly. I'm just not fat, I guess. Not that it's anything wrong with that. Not, but but I hope the listeners out there, I hope you're having a beautiful Christmas. I hope that this added a little bit of fun to your Christmas, because it's obviously it's fun for me. These stories are fun. Look them up and get some more acquainted, especially like if you have your ancestry comes from these areas. It's kind of interesting to see what people used to think and do, and how it's transformed. Because like I do find it interesting. People are always like saying, before Christmas came, it was a pagan holiday. It was Yule, and it was a winter solstice, and beautiful. It's beautiful. And then Christians came and said Jesus was born at this time. And I know historically they now say it probably wasn't born on December 25th, but these monster stories kind of lets you into a peek into that time period. And it's like, was Yule and the pagan holiday really all that great? It doesn't sound like it. It was a frightening time, actually. It's like,
and it's also kind of interesting. A lot of people bring tradition from their ancestors, their where they came from, and they were brought over to the United States. And some families still practice certain things, and
yeah,
it's an interesting thing just to see where it comes from, and how it originated and why you still practice it today. It's
yeah.
it's everybody has their own traditions, but it's always nice to find out where they come from.
Yeah, and like I said, like these stories, I think it adds a little spice to the Christmas holidays. It's like your rum cake. Nobody really wants it, but it's still there and it's part of Christmas. Just like these different monsters we discuss and the ghost stories. I think the ghost stories oftentimes seem to be more uplifting and happy endings. It's like you said, like the mother with the lights and like the brushing the hair, and seeing Santa Claus. It seems to be more upbeat, whereas my monsters, they're not as jolly, you know. But there you have it.
Well, not all of them are jolly, and
Yeah.
there's actually, I'll leave you with one. I believe it took place in Nova Scotia. There's two kids, two little girls. They were having a sleepover, and they were by themselves. And while they were watching TV and playing with their toys, the Christmas tree started shaking. Lights
Mm.
started flashing on and off, and all the lights in the house went out. Then they flashed back on. Well, they got terrified, so they ran to the girls' room. They both covered their heads, and the door was cracked open, and they were peeking out. They saw somebody run through the hallway and then disappeared. And they were terrified. They didn't leave the room. The girl never spent the night at her friend's house ever again. But
I wouldn't either.
yeah, so I mean, most of them are uplifting, but there are some that can be a little terrifying. And
Uh,
that's just one of the. It was still interesting, and they never figured out what happened or who it was, or why it was in the house. It was the only time that they ever saw it.
hmm, that's
Yeah.
crazy. The veil between the living and the dead is thin on winter solstice. I guess worse than on Halloween. That's people always say it's there, but Christmas is even more into the death cycle of the earth, at least on the northern hemisphere.
Yeah.
So, but I thank you, Chip, for joining me on this our inaugural Christmas episode.
Well, I appreciate you having me.
And to all of you out there, I hope you have a very Merry Christmas. I know that's not politically correct, but I don't care. And have happy holidays. If you don't celebrate Christmas, you celebrate Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah. And all the other holidays that fallen in this time period. I hope you have a good time with your families. And please come back. And as always, stay safe and keep searching.
Check out fedoracrt.com today.